fine line between being around people that make you comfortable and being afraid of being uncomfortable. What's good, y'all? What's good, Real Talk Squad? This is Miles, and you're listening to Real Talk with Miles Johnson, where you know I always keep it real. Now, y'all see it's a little bit different now. I got the new lens. Again, I feel like every time I see y'all in the video, I'm in a whole new setup again. But Morehouse College, yes, the Morehouse College has given your boy an office. So I'm going to use it. And I'm going to use it for this podcast for sure. And, of course, doing my schoolwork and all that. But what y'all came to this video to hear about is, number one, my reaction to the Eagles game against the Commanders, them going 3-0, the only undefeated team in the NFC. Going to talk about Ben Simmons, his interview with J.J. Reddick, and how happy I am about Philly sports in general. But let's first start off with the Ben Simmons interview on the J.J. Reddick podcast. Now, when I first saw this, or when I first heard about this interview, I was like, no way. Ben Simmons, the guy that was silent, that didn't say anything on social media, didn't make any, public statement out in a year and a half after he was criticized all over, slandered all over internet, he decides now he wants to say something. And I have a problem with Ben Simmons and the J.J. Reddick podcast, and I have a big problem. I have a big problem with J.J. Reddick, because if you're going to bring Ben Simmons on your podcast a year and a half after he hasn't said anything to the public after being traded or after the whole trade saga, you have to ask him hard questions that makes him uncomfortable. But what Ben Simmons did, and this shows me that he didn't change at all in that year and a half since that debacle in Philly during Game 6 for that whole entire series against Atlanta. What that showed me is that, him going on this podcast showed me that, he hasn't changed, because he still wants to be Ben Simmons around people that make him comfortable. And everybody wants to be comfortable. Everyone wants to be around people that make them comfortable. But there's a fine line between being around people that make you comfortable and being afraid of being uncomfortable. Now, Ben Simmons is petrified of being uncomfortable. That's why he left Philly, because he was very uncomfortable. Going to Brooklyn, you got KD, you got Kyrie. All you got to do is steal, rebound, and pass. Did your job. There's not that many expectations, at least for you. When he was in Philly, all he had to do was one job: shoot the ball. That made him uncomfortable. He didn't want to come out of his comfort zone in terms of being a facilitator, being a defender, and all that. Right? The greats of the greats, they are uncomfortable. They love being uncomfortable. You talk about LeBron James. He's been on record saying, I love being uncomfortable. Just a flat out fact. If you're a great player, if you're all-time great in any profession, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And Ben Simmons going on the J.J. Reddick podcast, and I saw it from the first second to the last second, that full 115 minutes, 1 hour and 15 minutes. During the podcast, J.J. Reddick, he asked him about the Atlanta series. He asked him about the dunk, that the missed or the failed attempt in a dunk when he passed the ball to Matisse Thybulle after, passing it up for Trae Young under the basket. He asked him those questions. He asked him those questions, but it was like he was buffering up to be like, how come people were making it such a big deal, right? He had this one question. He asked him, you missed that, dunk, or you didn't, attempt that dunk when Trae Young was under the rim. do you feel like people made more of a big deal about it, right? And so now in the podcast, they're not talking about, oh, what was really going through my mind when I laid an egg in the playoffs. It's more like talking about other people's reactions. And Ben Simmons is misinterpreting yet again people's criticism of his play with hating. People like Shaq, Chuck, Stephen A, all these other talking heads on TV that criticize Ben Simmons are criticizing him from a basketball perspective. They see what he did on the basketball court, they know his ability, and they are criticizing him. Just like how he got praised when he was an all-star, defensive player of the year candidate, rookie of the year, he's going to face the same level of scrutiny if he doesn't perform well. JJ Reddick asked him a question, what happened in the Atlanta series? He said, we lost. Well, clearly, no, duh, you lost. But what happened with you? Oh, I was just, it's a mix of emotions going everything, bro. What really happened, bro? Why did you shoot the ball for 33% from the free throw line? There has to be a legitimate reason. There has to be a legitimate reason. And that the podcast, the JJ Reddick's podcast, did not really challenge Ben to be like, no, where was that drop off to where in the regular season you are around 65% from the line, and then come the playoffs you are 33%. And again, Ben Simmons is like the whole podcast. It was like, oh, Ben Simmons is so great. Like, Ben, how do you make those passes? And Ben Simmons is like eating it all up. Well, I make the pass like this. It's really hard for everybody else, but for me, it's pretty much easy. Like, it was like the whole podcast. JJ Reddick, the other guy that was asking them questions and all that was there too. They were just coddling Ben Simmons, trying to make him feel like the best player in the world and all that. And Ben Simmons is flat out eating it up. And again, this just showed me Ben ain't changed. He ain't changed at all. Because he's still comfortable with being comfortable. He's still okay with not really going outside the box, not really challenging himself. So when you talk about a guy, is he going to shoot threes next season? I would be like shocked out of my mind if Ben Simmons ends up shooting the ball next season, because he already showed you he's still not okay with being uncomfortable. And you're going to have to be uncomfortable if you want to shoot the ball in the NBA. Now, it's up to Ben Simmons. The Brooklyn Nets can be a contender for a championship, or they can be a favorite to win the entire NBA championship. But that falls on Ben Simmons. Because if Ben Simmons shoots the ball and is a threat outside the paint, the Nets are going to destroy everybody that comes in their path. But if all he wants to do is do the bare minimum and be comfortable in terms of just stealing the ball, rebounding, assisting, not really putting up that many points, then it's just not going to translate to the Nets being a threat to really win the whole entire thing. A legitimate threat, bro. Like if he is just saying, you know what, I just want to steal the ball, I just want to do all the bare minimum stuff, and you know what, I do have the potential to be a top 5 player. Maybe that's too much. A top 10 player in this league if I can just shoot the ball. But I'm just gonna stick to what I know, stick to what I'm comfortable with, and that'll be fine. And that just might be fine to make them a contender. But if Ben Simmons shot the ball, do you know how good this Brooklyn Nets team would be? I mean, they would mop everybody in their path. That's up to Ben Simmons. And I still think that KD and Kyrie are looking at Ben Simmons and like, this guy is cuckoo. Even Kyrie might be saying that. And, he's one of the most cuckoo guys in the league. But they're probably looking at him like, what's up with this guy? He's a different breed. I ain't never meet no guy like him. That's Ben Simmons for you. And I want Ben Simmons. I really want him to challenge himself to be uncomfortable, because once you do that, that's the first step into you changing your game and really improving as a basketball player. So Ben Simmons, there still is work to be done, and you should just not. You could have you, bro. If you was gonna wait, if I did not say anything for a year and a half, and I've been very controversial. First time I speak, I'm talking crazy. I'm talking crazy. Oh, Joel Embiid, that's not really my man's for real. He's straight, on my nuts, all that. I would have been talking crazy, bro. And if I could curse on here, I would be cussing. But I'm saying, if I was Ben Simmons, I would be going crazy. I'm not gonna be giving all these politically correct answers in the podcast, like you wasn't trying to force your way out of Philly in the worst way possible. So he talks about, oh, I still feel like I'm a part of Philly. I don't know where you got that from, because there is nobody in Philly with the right mind that thinks that you belong here. Respectfully.